everyone, welcome to my channel where I share with you practical tools, insights, and inspiration to help you on your journey of healing, transformation, and enlightenment. Today's guest is Ann Tucker. Ann was a corporate negotiator and executive coach for major firms, and now a trance channel who channels angels and archangels to bring healing and divine messages and frequencies to people. Hi, Ann. Thank you so much for being
Thank you
on
so
the
much for
channel
having
today.
me. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be with you. Thanks.
Thank you. I have done all of your programs and they're truly transformational. And so it is absolutely my pleasure and my honor to interview you today. And I'm so fascinated with your path because you had a very successful corporate career, right? You were at Microsoft and you were an executive coach. Could you talk about what prompted you to make the career change? Because in most people's eyes, you are really highly successful.
Yeah, it was not an easy choice. In some ways it was a choice I had to make. Like I couldn't not do it. There was I mean, I would even call it the obsession to explore this path was so strong that I just felt like it was inevitable that I had to do this. But I was also very aware that it was a one-way ticket. That once I came out as a healer, as that it was the clients that I had worked with, it was not, it was, once you kind of walked out, you couldn't come back. So that it was really a big choice, a really big choice to leave. And I had to get to a space where I was just ready to take that leap. And the interesting thing is that on my journey, there have been many, many times where I have gotten to that place where I just have to make the leap and I don't know what's coming next. And that definitely was the case, with leaving my work and going into this field, because I mean, everybody always jokes about the broke healer. You know what I mean? Oh, it's impossible to make a living as a healer. And I have a wonderful business that supports me and many other people at this point. But when I left my business, when I left executive coaching, there was no reason for me to believe that, right? There was no reason for me to think it was possible. So it was taking the plunge. It was jumping off the cliff. And I have done that almost every 2 years in this once I've gotten onto the path. It's been jumping off the cliff just about every 2 years in some way.
Interesting. You're a trance channel. Like, how did you find out that you have a channeling gift?
Oh gosh. Well, I knew, like, I mean, and I think a lot of people on this path, like, you have a feeling about yourself that you're psychic or that you're connected or that you have, like, and I knew that from a young age. I wouldn't have known what to call it. And I knew about psychics. My dad had talked about psychics, and I thought, oh, I think I'm psychic. And I think there was a show on 60 Minutes when I was a kid about psychics. And I thought, oh, I think I'm psychic, but I didn't know how to access that or what it was.
Yeah.
I read a book that when I was a kid, The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar by Roald Dahl, the same guy who wrote James and the Giant Peach. And it was all about a guy who learned to see without his eyes and to see through things. And sure enough, I became a medical intuitive, so able to see into the body, and just like in that book. And I think that happens for a lot of people. We have some kind of experience in childhood that's almost like a preview, or a glimpse into what you'll become. But I didn't really know until I didn't know what channeling was. I didn't know about becoming a channel until later. I had it through my dreams. I had the awarenesses come. And I started taking courses. I started going to intuitive development programs, things like that, trying to understand how to, and it was at the time I understood it as my intuition, accessing my intuition. And then pretty soon so I started out just trying to get information. Then I understood that I could do healing in this method. So I became a healer, and I started working full-time as a healer. And it was pretty much once I started, at the time I was doing clairvoyant healing, clairsentient, clairknowing, but the trance channeling didn't come in for some time later. So I was working that way, thought that was it, that's what it was going to be. And then one day I was sitting out to meditate, and all of a sudden, I closed my eyes to meditate, and then boom, I felt this pressure sit on top of me. And it was physical. It was so strong I couldn't breathe. It was pressing here and here, trying to breathe. And I was, what is that? And especially because my guides had always come in through the back, the rear of my chakras to work through me. So I was like, I thought it was my guides sitting on top of me trying to come into my body. And I was like, what's the deal? Come in, like I'm open, come in through the back like usual. Why are you squishing me?
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it. And that went on for like 6 months. And I tried everything, trying to figure out why aren't they coming in, until finally 6 months in, it occurred to me that they weren't trying to sit on me. They were trying to lift me up. And so that was when I as soon as I realized that, and I kind of opened my crown chakra, and then zoop, I went up. And then there I was with the angels. And I was like, yes, I did it. They're here. Let's go. Let's talk. Nothing, like nothing. It was crickets. It literally, they just sat there and smiled at me. And I couldn't figure out how to hear anything. I could see them, but I couldn't hear anything. And I tried for 6 months. I tried. I was like, can you write me, like, here's a tablet. Can you write something on this for me? Can you, how can I understand can you say something? Nothing. And it took me another 6 months of experimenting until finally I just kind of had the confidence, and I decided to just try. I realized I needed to keep a part of myself down here and a part of myself up there at the same time. And then I started with writing words as they came through. And that's when I became a true trance channel. I started with writing, and then eventually they told me to just dictate. And so I started just dictating. Yeah. So it was a process. I never had any game plan. I never knew what was going to happen before it happened. It was always a situation where I had to just trust and jump. Always.
I see. Like, were you as an executive coach, did you realize that you were also using your intuitive ability already?
Yes, I did. Because I started on the path, and at the time, I was in the process of creating a curriculum that I was using with them, but I called it was really about your soul type. It was about what type of a soul you are, based on how you create in the world based on your specific soul energy. But I called it decision types to make it okay to use in a corporate environment. So we were talking about our decisions, but in reality, we're talking about how we form energy with our mind and based on our soul type. And I taught that in big companies, and taught that to individuals. So that was kind of so I was doing that. I just couldn't talk about it as what it really was. I had to disguise it. You know what I mean? So I was aware I was doing this. But I wasn't, I would say I was still pretty much in my corporate. I was still pretty closed. I think at that point, I would say I was only a little bit open. Open enough can make a difference. A little bit open. That's it. You get a little light in, and the room isn't dark anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you actually wrote a book, right, about it,
Yeah,
different
yeah,
soul types. And for
yeah. I
those,
did.
if you're interested, will include the link in the description, and they can check
Thank
out
you.
your book. And
Thank
speaking of you, like writing down messages, and I've been following your YouTube channels, and your messages are so amazing. And there's like one really stuck with me, which is about karmic path. And you were
Yeah.
talking about that. Now, karmic path is a choice. We don't have to repeat it anymore. And could you talk about what is karma? Because I think a lot of people associate karma with karmic justice, but there's a lot more to it. And talk about like, what do you mean by karma is a choice now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the karma, I think we get into this perspective, this idea that karma is a judgment that's made against us, and that we are kind of forced into a life where we run up against our karma, and it's like a punishment, that idea that like eye for an eye, like if you do something, it creates karma, and that karma is going to come back at you. And I think that is how people use that term. And that is not my understanding of karma. My understanding of karma is that karma is just a word to define anything that we chose to experience on earth. So these are things that and so sometimes when at the end of our life, we cross over, we go through a life review, we experience everything that we experienced on earth from every perspective. So all the people that we wounded, we feel it as if it was us. And in those moments, we might feel like we feel all their feelings. We might feel terrible about something that happened. And when we do, we say, oh my gosh, I need to make that right somehow. And so how can I make that right? And we will at that moment be our own judge and mete out our own justice. Like we are the ones who judge ourselves. So we may look at a particular situation and say, yeah, that bad thing happened, but I was totally justified in doing that, because like on the other side, we may not judge ourselves. We may feel like, no, I can see that that was fair and this is why that happened. And but what if we do? What if we look at it and say, wow, I made that person feel terrible. I need to make it right. Well, we may come into this world and decide that we then want to be the recipient of that same energy, so that we can really embody that and feel that and come to a space of self-understanding or forgiveness, forgive the other person, forgive ourselves, whatever it is. And so we create this karma for ourselves. And sometimes karma can be a really good thing. It can be like, I want to come to earth and be a healer. Okay, that's your karma, right? You got to come to earth and if you don't do it, you've let yourself down. So karma can be positive or negative. But the difference is that we have been in this earth school, which is created with this concept of karma, where we create for ourselves almost like a course or class schedule, as if we're going to say, okay, you are at the earth school and here is your agenda, here's your syllabus, here's all the things you're going to do. You are going to experience the pain of rejection, and then you're going to go grow through forgiveness, and then you're going to experience the pain of abandonment, and then you're going to grow through, right, here's your syllabus, this is what you're going to, and you're also going to become a healer, and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And you might do that, like how that plays out will vary based on you, right, based on the choices of free will, but there will still be these highlights in the syllabus. And that has been our journey up until now. Well, as we go through this shift in consciousness, it won't be like that anymore. It won't be a situation where we are defined by our karma. And it will not be the same type of school. Like right now, we experience things through contrast and through conflict. And as we move into this new state of awareness, we will be at a place where we have much more awareness of the world around us, that we won't be that sort of person who's bumbling into life, bumping up against ourselves and not understanding it and trying to understand ourselves. We will have that understanding much more readily. So, and same thing about in terms of the process of creation becomes very, very different for ourselves. As we move into this new state of consciousness, we will see things as energy, and we'll be able to see into things. So for example, I might be able to see, like, here's my computer mouse. And right now, to me, it feels very solid. I just see it as a piece of plastic. But once we go through this consciousness shift, I will be able to look at this and I can still see it with my five senses. I can still smell it, taste it, touch it, knock on it. It's still physical, except I will also see it. It's almost like I have additional senses that open up. I will also see it as energy. I will see it as vibrating. And as I look at it vibrating, I might look at this mouse and say, wow, I notice in this mouse that there is one energy that's discordant, right? That is a non-harmonious energy that is inside the mouse. And maybe it's because the person who assembled this mouse at the factory that day was in a bad mood, right? And as they were putting it, they were grumpy, and they were working on the mouse, and all that energy is going into the mouse. And I can look at it in this new state of consciousness and see, oh, wow, there's that piece of energy in there that's really disharmonious. And I can change that. It's mutable. I can change it. So in a world where we can alter the world around us, karma doesn't make as much sense, right? We experience the world differently. And our goal of living becomes to learn how to work with the energies around us, as opposed to what the current goal is, which is to confront ourselves. So that our purpose for coming to Earth is different. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can you talk about the changing awareness? Is it something happen for us from the universe, or also requires us to elevate our consciousness to welcome this change?
So this big shift in consciousness is available to everyone.
Mhm.
So everybody has the opportunity to shift. And there will be these big flashes of light that come to the planet. And the angels have said that specifically there'll be 3 waves of light. And the first one that's going to be coming, we will experience at least the first one. And I believe we will experience all 3 in our lifetime. But I know for sure we're going to at least experience the first one. And when it happens, the angels have said that will be the moment that we look back on and say that that was the moment that changes everything. And when that flash of light comes, the angels have said it is divine presence. And as it moves across the earth, it moves into and through us, and we hold that energy, and that becomes us. So we bring in more divine presence, which then shifts our consciousness. It's like an instant upgrade. And and that happens for everyone. But what happens if you have somebody who's there who is in the process of all the earth changes and the changes in politics and the changes in the economy, and they're going through what they perceive to be enormous loss? Like, think about the people during COVID who were so upset because their lives had changed so dramatically, who were angry that maybe they lost their business, or maybe they were in high school and they didn't get to have a prom, or that, the things that people get really attached to, like, my life is supposed to be this, and it's not. And they might feel really, really angry about that. Or they might feel really, really sad about that. And so they might be looking back at what they don't have anymore and holding on to that really tightly, wishing the world could be like that again, trying to create that world again, and resisting the change. They're really only looking for an avenue that brings them back to what they lost. And if people are in that energy, they are closed, right? They're turning their back to it. They're trying to look back behind them, and they're basically, it's like if you think of us as a sponge, and they are a sponge that's wrung out so tight that nothing can get in. And so that's how it is. The light will move through them and around them, but nothing can get in because they're clenched so tight. So it's available to them, but they might not receive it.
I
And
see.
so, yeah, so that is part of the reason why all the light workers are here, is because we don't give up on anybody, right? Everybody has, as long as they're here on earth, they have the opportunity to shift, and they may discover that they want to change, right? They will need help. They will need the help of the light workers in order to wake up. Yeah. To have that light come into them. Yeah.
I see. It sounds like the universe is making these changes around us, but we also need to welcome it to allow it to change us from inside out so that we can be more open to these changes in the future, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly how I see it. Yeah.
Interesting. I also remember you talked about how divinities and angels see human path, because we have the idea of divinity, they're up there, they're perfect, and human here, we're down here, we have so much sins, we need to repent for our sins. But from your perspective, the divinity and angels actually have tremendous respect and compassion for what we go through, and they're here with us. Could you talk about this too?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you may have heard like the concept of a guardian angel, that each person has a guardian angel, and that is 100% true. The angels have said that they are much more tied to us than we realize. It's almost like they're in us, like they're a part of us. And there is a difference between us and the angels. They refer to themselves as the divine light, and they refer to us as the divine spark, because they say we are the divine spark because we are creative. We create our reality. And angels don't do that. Angels experience the world around them, they experience things around them, and then they move through it. But it's not a reflection of their internal reality. For us, we walk into a room and then we attract by the process of attraction, by who we are, and by our thoughts, right? Our thoughts are creative. We start to create our reality. Our world changes because we are in it. So we are more, that is the part of the divine that we hold, which angels don't have. So when they see us as a part of the divine that they love just as much as they love source, right? They see that incredible part of us who is the creator. And that's how they experience us. So they are for them to be near us is a wonderful thing. There is, at the same time, it's hard for them to be on earth because the density is so extreme. It is hard for them to lower their frequency to this level. And they do have an incredible amount of compassion for the difficulty of being human. I wouldn't say that your average angel understands what it is to be human. They don't understand the depth of our feelings, and they don't feel those feelings. Like, angels don't feel shame. They don't feel unworthiness. They don't feel the hardest things that we go through. They don't go through that. But they see us, right, in our pain and in our suffering. And all they want for us is for us to find our joy, right? For us to have a beautiful life, a joyful life. They don't want us to suffer. So they're enormously compassionate. They see us as divine beings. They have enormous sympathy for our challenges. They cannot, like I said, they can't feel our most, there's only like not that many angels have been human, by far in the minority. And those that have understand more deeply what it is to have all these feelings. But even without that, they still have, just because of the fact that they exist in the frequency of divine love, of compassion, that's what they feel towards us.
Okay. You talk about where these negative feelings come from, like fear, shame. How do we create these? If we're the creation divine, how do we create something that is not in alignment with what divine is, which is light?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I mean, there's so many different ways to describe that. I mean, one is the original concept of separation from the divine. You know, when and like, how was the earth created as an earth school? Why is there evil on earth? Why is it so dense? You know, why are there these dark energies? When we say it is dense, what we mean is that it's able to vibrate at these low frequencies. Like everything is emotion, really. Everything is energy, and the heaviness, the density of earth is like part of what makes it so dense, is that there is things here like shame and, you know, unworthiness and all these kinds of things, that is part and parcel to being this sort of this heavy dimension, heavy environment that we are in. And how did it come? Like, how did we get evil on earth? Like, the angels haven't really, they've talked about, yes, there is evil on earth. My understanding is that it has to do, there are certain angels who are fallen angels, like that's a thing. And I believe that what they were after was the concept of power, was power over others. And so that fight is still out there. And as we go through the shift in consciousness, if we move to a state of awareness where we can no longer have those low vibration energies, then that type of consciousness can't come with us. So it can't move into these higher frequencies without changing themselves. So when we go into the new state of consciousness, we will find ourselves, our overall state of being will be much lighter.
Mm. And I guess these low vibrations can also be transformed into higher vibrations through love and compassion, right?
Yes, 100%. And there's different things out there. Like when we talk about fallen angels or lost souls, they're always welcome home, right? They're everybody, even they came from source. All of us came from source, and they are always welcomed home. But there are also out there what we would call like a fourth dimension entity. And dimensions are hard to talk about because nobody shares a definition of what is a dimension, but it is a non-physical being and these are like, you might hear about entities, if you've ever heard of entities. So entities, first time I bumped into an entity, it surprised the heck out of me. I didn't know what I was looking at. It was very early on my path, before I left my job, before all that stuff started. But I was learning about healing, learning about all this stuff. And I was waking up in the morning, and it was like 4 a.m. I was in that kind of liminal state between sleep and awake. And in my mind's eye, my then husband, the guy I was married to at the time, he was on a business trip. And in my mind's eye, I just suddenly saw his energy. I saw him like, sort of by himself, like almost like in the ether. You know, I saw his outline, but I saw on him, on his left side, there was this sort of star-shaped creature that was clearly like not supposed to be there. It was big, about this, you know, the size of a I don't know, a big ball, I guess I would describe it. But it was the shape of a star. And it was wrapped around him like a starfish, specifically on the left side of his body. And it was dark. And I just thought, in my sleepy state, I'm like, well, that shouldn't be there, you know? And so without really thinking anything of it and not knowing if this was a dream or what was it, I just reached out to like take it off. And I did. I reached over, I kind of took it off, and then energetically the thing came at me. And it was so shocking. It threw me backwards, almost in a way, like almost like knocking the wind out of me, but in my sleep state. It was a physical, like you know what I mean? Where you felt this thing coming towards me. And then almost instinctively, I had literally just had a session with somebody for the first time, like 2 days before, where they had taught me about the violet flame, which is a healing tool. And almost instinctively, boom, I made this violet flame in this experience I was having. It's like it just kind of like it just happened. It's like boom, violet flame. And as soon as I did that thing, skirted away. It like ran away and it was gone. And I thought that was the weirdest experience ever. What was that? But I went back to sleep thinking, well, that was a weird dream, except that I had this very physical experience of this thing coming at me. It felt very real, but how could it be real? You know what I mean? It was so dreamy, so strange. So I go to sleep again, wake up the next morning, and then he calls me in the morning. He says, I do not know what happened to me last night. I feel like I was hit by a truck. And I realized, oh my gosh, that was real. Like that really did happen. I cleared an entity from him without even knowing what I was doing. And so then that brings a question, it's like, what the heck is an entity? And so learning and learning from other people, it's like that. What I eventually came to discover is that they are they're created by people, and they're like a negative thought form that has taken on life, but they don't have a path of evolution. So they're almost like single-celled organisms, like what we would think of as like an amoeba. You know what I mean? In physical form, these are like the amoebas of the spirit world, and they don't have a path of evolution. They're not, and they're created by our negativity. So our negative thoughts have to go somewhere, and then we have enough of these negative thoughts, and they turn into these beings that feed off of negative energy. And they have no ill will towards us. There's not like they're trying to hurt us. What they eat is negative emotions. So they will attach themselves to someone who has negativity happening in their field, and they're very happy there, and they're just feeding. And they may, even because they're feeding on that emotion, they may impact you to make you actually feel more negativity. So for them, it's like lunch, they don't mean to be mean. So they're just creatures that are trying to live. But yeah, but the challenge is, I remember one time it was so interesting. This only happened once, where I removed an entity from someone in a session, and I asked the angels to remove the entity, but to give the entity an evolutionary path. And that was very, very cool. That was a very cool thing. So they took that entity somewhere else and allowed it to have a pathway of evolution, which was pretty awesome. Yeah. And I don't know like how that evolved, but I knew at the time like it was different, very unusual for that particular being. Yeah.
Can entities usually be transformed into higher energies?
Not those types of entities, no. They're pretty much like if the earth shifts in vibration, they won't be able to come along. Like they cannot come along. And so where will they go? To the other earth, this new place where we're going to have the karmic school continues? Probably. I don't know for sure. I mean, I know that energy is always constant, right? Energy can't be created or destroyed. So something will have to happen with those entities. That energy, that negativity will have to go somewhere. So I don't know where or what will happen with that. The angels haven't spoken about that yet, but I know that they won't be able to stay on Earth as the Earth shifts.
Interesting. I read books by Dolores Cannon, and
Yeah.
she also talked about two Earth
Yeah.
concept, which is the more 5D, and the other one is more like now still 3D. And
Yeah.
people of the two worlds can't really relate to each other. So they are living in completely different like operating system, just operating on different frequencies. And
Yeah.
the people who are living on the 3D cannot understand why people who are living in the 5D consciousness are so loving, compassionate, and forgiving, and letting everything that doesn't serve us go. While people living in the 5D does not understand why they hold on to something that does not serve us so tightly, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that the most recent message that I shared on my Friday Live, they talked about this because I had a vision. I was looking particularly at this one neighborhood, and I was looking at what it would be like in the future. And what I expected to see was like the neighborhood pulling together and people helping people, and I expected to see something like that. And what I saw really surprised me. What I saw was that there were multiple houses that were just empty, that there was like nobody in them. Like there was somebody in this house and there was somebody in this house, but these other houses, I could see which ones. They were like, that one's empty and that one's empty. And I was like, well, where did the people go? And it was very disturbing because I thought, oh my gosh, what does that mean? So I channeled on it. And the angels said, it's not that they're gone. It's not like they've died or anything like that. It's that those are the people who were not open to the light, who did not, as the angels described it, did not step into the light. And so it becomes a state where there are some people who have made this shift already. And so it's almost like looking at the neighborhood this way. It's almost like seeing it from the angelic perspective, who's visible, who's in the light, and who's not. The ones who I could see who were in their homes were visible, from the angelic perspective. They're closer to the angels. And but at the same time, we're all still sharing the same world. So I tend to think of it a little bit like how we share the world with like the elementals, right? Like they're around us. Like people talk about fairies and stuff like that. Like they're out there and they're on the earth, but they're just not in our world all that much. So that's kind of how I think it might be. Like I think we will still interact with each other, that we will see them and they will see us, I assume. And I know that people who do not make the shift will be able to live their life out here. It's only when they pass, they won't be able to reincarnate on the earth unless they've achieved that higher state of consciousness.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I like how you describe that. It's like how divine sees us. Like I think when we have compassion and love for ourselves, we allow ourselves to be seen as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's how divine can see us. So I can totally see that. It's almost human path and divinity, they're connected, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you make a really good point is that there's so much about this shift because the goal of this shift is that we will get to a space of unity and oneness with everything. But we can't do that if we are keeping ourselves protected and hidden. And so that's part of the thing. And so one of the big obstacles is trust. How much do we trust each other? How willing are we to allow ourselves to be seen? So the healing path, the healing journey, the one that you are on right now, with soul convergence is all about bringing all aspects of ourself into convergence, allowing us to accept all of ourselves so that we are unafraid to be seen, right? So that is that idea that there's nothing about me that I feel like I need to hide. And so that I can feel totally open and not hide myself from source, from the divine, or from you, you know. And so so I think you nail on the head. I think that's exactly right.
Thanks. I was told that I'm an earth angel, and I did some research into it, and they
Yeah.
said earth angel is like two-way conduit between earth and the divinity.
Yeah.
Um, so could you talk about earth angels? Because I think probably a lot of viewers of this channel will be earth angels.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it is a thing where angels can come to earth. And to come into a human body. And it's I would say more now than usual. That this is a very unusual time. But I would say that for all, I mean, like every human, every soul that's on in the body that's on the earth is that sort of a connection where we all are basically anchoring the light of the divine onto this plane of existence. We are all almost like a portal for divine energy to come through us. As an energy, as an angel being on the planet, one of the things that would be interesting is that idea that one of the reasons we are here is to try to elevate the collective consciousness, which cannot be done from the outside. It can only be done from the inside. So it can only be done by coming into physical presence. So if, as an angel, being a high vibration being, coming into the physical body, just by being here, you are altering what it is to be human. You're altering that collective. And so just that by itself, even if you just came and you just like, zenned out by yourself in a room the entire time, you are doing incredible work by being here as an angel who is embodied as a human. It might bring up interesting challenges for you as an angel embodied as a human because it is being human takes practice. You know what I mean? It's challenging to be an angel in a human body. But what's interesting, so have you discovered as an angel, have you discovered that you have past lives? Have you seen any of your past lives?
Um, I did past life regression, but I fell asleep, but I had dreams. But
Oh,
I did
interesting.
past life regression with a healer, but I
Yeah,
didn't see it myself. And Elizabeth Rose did healing for me. She channeled into past lives. So
yeah.
these are my encounters with my past lives.
So you did see past lives, or you were told you had past
Yeah, I
lives.
was told,
Yeah.
yes.
So here's the reason I asked is because, or reason I brought it up is because I think it's really interesting. This idea of an angel who comes to Earth, of a Earth, then there's the idea like how many angels are there that are living on Earth? Not that many. But if you came specifically at this time, would this have been your only life? And that would have been my original thought, is that an angel would come to Earth or a volunteer may come to Earth. What if they've never been embodied before? But then we go into regressions and you have past lives. So how can that be? And so then the angel showed me, they took us on a journey back to our origin point, to the origin point of what it is to become a human. So then we each would have our origin moment. And that origin moment, it's almost like at the moment that as an angel that you would have decided to incarnate, you would have incarnated across all space and time. Almost like if you imagine the universe, like if you see a picture of the universe and that spiral that goes out, and then you see the origin point is the center. The center is the choice to incarnate, the choice to exist, right? For a human, for a soul. And then there's the first moment of division, almost like mitosis, where you have it splits like a choice of I'm going to incarnate as a man or a woman. What's it going to be? Oh, okay, I'm going to incarnate as a woman. So this is the one choice, and then here's the other choice. And then from each of those other choices, there becomes four more choices and then eight more choices and then but that process of rapid duplication or expansion of one choice leading into the next into the next into the next happens so quickly that it manifests like you start here and then boom, it's like to us it seems instantaneous. And so at the same time you're having this experience right now, you exist in a bunch of other places also having an incarnation at the same time, and those are all coming up as past lives. So but they're actually all happening right now. We're going to get really deep here if we keep on going on this topic, but it is, but to me, I think it's a really interesting question, specifically talking about being, if, and this whole concept of like, you mentioned Dolores Cannon, the concept of volunteers. Well, if somebody is a volunteer, does that mean they have had past lives or not? And based on this vision that they showed me of how it replicates across all space and time, the answer would be yes. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that is so interesting. Because in her book, she was talking about that a lot of the three waves who volunteered to be on Earth, they never had their reincarnation on Earth, and
Yeah,
they
right.
find their experience on Earth very challenging. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they're supposed to go out and meet people, but they like to stay with themselves because they don't get why the earth or why people on earth behave certain way. Um,
Yes.
I was
Mm-hmm.
I actually had coworkers telling me like I think you're from a different planet, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really true.
Mhm.
So that's the answer is it may be a volunteer, but that volunteer in coming in as physical replicated in more than one place. So was probably having multiple lives at the same time. So in this life, they may feel like this is so you might find a soul who has been in the earth plane forever and they would have loads and loads and loads of lives, but a volunteer will still they will replicate in many places. So you might be living many concurrent lives in different time frames, different timelines. Yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah, that is so interesting. As a human, I couldn't wrap my mind around parallel lifetimes happening at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's so fascinating. And now speaking of the life on Earth, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people who are not happy because they kind of miss the underlying purpose of why we reincarnate here. Can you talk
Yeah.
about it from Angel's perspective or from your experience? What is the purpose living here on Earth?
Oh gosh, I would say our purpose is multifold. I'd say the first is always for ourselves. That at the end of the day, we are here for our own growth, and that would apply to even the most high vibe light right worker who came to be here. We are still here for ourselves. That we all have room to grow, And so our own growth will always be prioritized by our guides. So in the choices that we make and the opportunities that are given to us and the things that come into our field, they will always have in mind first and foremost our journey and our path. And then within that journey and path, there is the opportunity to serve others, right? And then usually that's mutually beneficial. We serve another and then we grow as a result of it. Like and sometimes that's very direct. You know what I mean? If you're a hands-on healer and you're channeling healing for someone else, that energy is coming through you, so you're growing as a result. Or sometimes it's the thing like the traditional model, you help someone and you get to feel the benefit or that wonderful feeling of being useful and being of service. So those are, and then we become important in each other's experience of living. But then on top of that, there is that this is a unique time. And so part of the other reason to come to Earth right now is to try to shift the collective, right? Is to shift what is the collective conscious? What are our beliefs? What are our attitudes? How can we try to move more in alignment with the higher state of consciousness? And so that I think is a really big reason why people have come to Earth right now.
Interesting. I really like you said that it's multifold, and you mentioned that the service to others. And I
Yeah.
did a channel session with Elizabeth Rose, and she said that a lot of people not realize that when you serve other people, you're actually happy.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're not happy, it's because you're not contributing your best to a situation that you are bothered about. So if you're being challenged with some situation, maybe think about how you can benefit the situation, how you can put yourself in service instead of in the mindset of taking. Of that shifting in behavior and mindset will actually change people's feeling about themselves. And it's not conscious to all people, but once you
Yeah.
try to help people, everyone tends to feel happier and better about themselves. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're so right. Yeah. And it is an interesting thing as we are moving through the world and bumping up against conflict or bumping up against difficulty. I think it is helpful to always think about that. We're thinking about being of service. How are we of service in the world around us? A lot of it has to do with just by who we are being, And so the thing that we have control over is our own energy. And so the degree to which we can heal. So and that applies even if we have, say, for example, if you have conflict with a family member, if you heal the ways in which you feel triggered by that person and then your energy shows up differently and that person reacts to you differently. And so you can shift the dynamic just by fixing is the wrong word, but by addressing the unmet needs or the wounds or the places where you feel unseen inside in that relationship. And then it's amazing to me to see how that can ripple outwards. It's almost like between two people, there's a dance that's being performed, and each person has to do the same moves, and then they move together in the same dance of conflict. This person is triggered, and this person steps right into that trigger, and then they step on each other's toes, and if one person doesn't make the dance moves, the dance falls apart, and then everything shifts.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I actually went to a mentor who specializes in human potential, which is so different from what I expected initially. She has concept of leading your life from a place of being. That was like about 10 years ago, 8 years ago. That was a very new concept to me. And now
Yeah,
when I was doing more about healing, I understand what she meant by lead your life from a place of healing instead of doing. So
yeah,
yeah, people react to you on an energetic level as well. So let's say there's issue within you, you feel unseen, and then you try to do extra things to attract attention, but internally you still feel like you're unseen or you're unappreciated.
yeah.
So the state of being needs to be transformed and not
Yes.
just the behavior, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, very, very well said. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it is funny how you will see in your life. Like I've had, past marriages where once the karma was resolved, once I had found forgiveness, once things were like I had healed what I needed to heal inside, then those people literally moved as far as they could move away from me, like to the other side of the country. Do you know what I mean? It was like, it was so resolved that they're just not part of my world anymore. And that's like, I think that's how it can be. It can either be a thing where either it shifts the relationship and it becomes something much better, or that person is just no longer part of your experience.
Yeah, interesting. And you were talking about the shifts that's happening now. Can you talk about how these manifest in terms of our economic, political climate, and also maybe the environmental climate? Yeah.
Yeah, the changes that are coming, you mean?
Yes.
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 Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's a lot of changes coming. And we've already been through a lot. There's a lot of stuff the angels have told us about that have already happened and that are still happening. And sometimes they tell us about like details, about specific little things. You're like, why did they mention that? But I think the reason is because they are trying to help us to like a lot of this stuff. Humans don't like change. Do you know what I mean? We're not comfortable with change typically. Humans like to know what's coming. You know, if we can predict things, we can prepare. We like to be prepared. We don't want to be caught off guard. And so what they don't want to have happen is for some of these things to happen and then for us to be so in shock or so scared that we end up in a vibration of fear. You know what I mean? They want us to be holding the light. They want us to know enough so that regardless of what happens, we can look at it and say, I know what that is. This is just part of the process. I know everything's going to be fine. And to be able to stay in that place of love, and to stay in that place of openness, of receptivity to that beautiful light that's coming. And so that's why they tell us about this stuff. And I think that part of the reason why they have shared some of the more small things that they've talked about, like they told us like a couple weeks before the last round of bird flu came through, they told us, yeah, there's going to be a chicken disease. And sure enough, like 2 weeks later, oh, guess what? There's a big chicken disease. So why that? You know, why talk about the chickens? And not that chickens aren't important, but you know what I'm saying. And I think it's this idea of building up trust, saying, okay, here's like breadcrumbs. Look, here's a breadcrumb. Here's a breadcrumb. You know, they talked about the truck drivers abandoning their routes, you know, right before all that craziness happened with the truck drivers in 2020. And I didn't understand at the time they said it. I could not figure out why that would be and why would it be important. I think it was just another one of those. Here's a breadcrumb. Here's another breadcrumb, you know, and because it was so specific, it's not like you have absolute certainty this is what they meant. A lot of times when they say these things, I have to learn not to interpret it, to just take it at face value. Because if I interpret it, I'm trying to understand it in the frame of what's happening now. And that's not usually how it happens. It usually happens in a new context, wherever we are 6 months from now. But the most recent things they talked about that I see happening, they talked about a couple of years ago, I think it was 2, 3 years ago, they warned us about the banking crisis, which has now started. And I think there may be more to that. But the banking crisis and the shutting of the banks, it's happened so far just exactly as they described it. There's also, they said that the U.S. would lose its political hegemony. And I think that is happening with the decline of the petrodollar. There's several things that are happening in terms of, and they said recently that shipping would be catastrophic, that the shipping as an industry would be catastrophic. And when I hear that, I think I originally thought it would be because of the earth changes and the oceans being that they said that there's going to be a like electromagnetic type shifting in the planet. Like there'll be, and I think it could be related to the 3 waves of light, but whatever it is, there's stuff going on with the planet that ends up altering the crust and changing the planet. And that creates almost like a sloshing of the oceans. And that sloshing creates what the angels called inundations of water and different shorelines. So certain places, they said, become uninhabitable because of inundation by water. And so I assume that's why shipping was catastrophic. But it could also be because of, they also said war would expand. So I think it could be because of like what's going on in the Suez Canal right now. You know, so already we're seeing stuff that's related to shipping, right? You know, they first mentioned shipping, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 months ago, that it would be a catastrophic industry. So my understanding in terms of what's really going on is that the earth, in order for us to make this shift in consciousness, there has to be a higher degree of freedom, that the institutions that hold us in place, that keep us in the 9 to 5 grind, that keep us, you know, in these boxes of what we think is normal, those are structures that don't necessarily have our highest and best in mind. And that there's a very unequal distribution of wealth and power in the world. And that needs to fall apart. And there are vested parties, vested people who have a strong interest in keeping things the way that they are. So if we're going to see any kind of lasting change, those institutions or those power centers have to be brought into the energy of exhaustion, that they can't be just they can't be just handicapped. They can't just have their wealth halved, right? Because if they have half as much wealth, they will just control everybody until they get all their wealth back again, right? It has to be, it's like they describe it as like a city block flattened into nothing. That energy, it has to be destroyed to the point where it cannot be recreated. And so that is why we're seeing the unwinding of so many things.
Mhm.
So some of those things might be these earth changes. The earth rift is one of the things they talked about. They talked about lots of flooding, which I think part of these inundations, but also massive amounts of rain. They've said the earth, the US, several years ago, 2 years ago, they started talking about the US splitting apart, which at the time seemed incredible, but now actually seems like, wow, I could see that happening. They talked about war spreading. They've talked about and you know, and economic upheaval. But the main reason for all of it is this idea of we have to break free from the expectations and limitations that have kept us in a particular way of living that is not suited to this new higher state of consciousness.
Yeah, very interesting. It's like they're
Yeah,
telling us to just follow, just let it go of control and trust that what is being taken away is not for your highest good. Just
yeah,
wait for your highest good to come. But in during the process, keep it calm and do your daily things, do what makes you feel joyful, what makes you feel happy, and just ride the wave, right? Don't be a blockage to yourself, to your own progress. I think this is what angels are saying, that they want the best for us.
absolutely. I absolutely agree. And you're right. It is that idea that if we lose something, trust that we didn't need it. Trust that it was meant to be that way. And or that for whatever reason, this was the right time for that to go away. That to just trust that we're going to be all right. That they have said that in this process, that it's not going to be a gentle, like easy period for a little while, that we're going to go through a bit of a crazy time, but that we would have enough, that we wouldn't have everything. It's not like we're going to be able to go to the store and find our imported favorite, you know, whatever it is from far away, but we would have what we need. You know,
Yeah,
we would have enough, that we will be all right.
yeah.
And that's, you know, and I think we'll be in a state of awareness, state of consciousness, well, where we will see the benefit already to the shift that we're making.
Yeah, and you talked more about these in details in your channel too. So I will include your channel in my description box. So anybody who is interested in knowing more, they can follow you and watch your videos. Uh,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. We talked a lot about healing and why it is important on a being level. That's why we're called human beings. Like fundamentally, we're relying on our natural beings, right? The state of being. And we're not called human doings. And
Point.
yeah, or human emotings. And your programs, they really helps people transform their beings to a higher level of vibration by having forgiveness towards yourself, love, compassion, all of these higher vibrations. And you're also bringing divine frequencies as well. And you have 3 programs. And I want to talk about 2 programs specifically because they are so fascinating. And the first one is Angelic Frequency Series. And you
Yeah.
talked about these are 9 frequencies had never been on Earth before. Like
Yeah.
even during the time of Atlantis or Lemuria, when humanity has reached a higher level of consciousness. Can you talk about this program a bit?
Yeah, yeah, I love this program. It's one of the first things the angels brought through me after I was trance channeling. And it was amazing to me to learn through that process. There was 9 different frequencies. They told me at the time, they said, okay, you're going to bring these frequencies to the earth And it's going to take 90 minutes, each one, 90 minutes, which at the time I was like, oh my, because holding that frequency, holding the angelic energy at the time was extremely hard for me. It was very exhausting. And to have it when they would come in, it would feel like I had this helmet over my head that was just squeezing my head. So it was exhausting and painful, physically painful to hold them in my energy at the time. And you can hear it. And in the first of the 9 frequencies, you can hear that my energy, my voice shakes a little bit, like it was hard for me to do it. But we did it. And so I channeled all 9, and we did one a month, and 90, like I said, 90 minutes. They told me that there would be people from all over the world that would come. At the time, I had no idea how that was going to happen, but it did. We had people from all over the world participate. So it helped to distribute this energy all over the world. And then afterwards, I went back and transcribed all of the sessions. And what blew my mind, so the sessions are, yes, they're transmitting frequencies, they're also healing. And what blew my mind was seeing in the transcriptions, I started to see some of their divine wisdom, some of that divine intelligence, that because when I'm channeling, I don't really know what's coming through. And I can't, it's hard for me to remember, especially to remember what they say. I have to go back and read it. I can remember bits, and they show me, I get kind of a second track where I'm seeing all the visuals, but to get all the details of what they say, I miss a lot. So I had it all transcribed, went back and read it. And one of the things I saw was that in 2 of the sessions, they are strengthening our connection. In one of them, they're strengthening our connection to Earth, and then the other, they're strengthening our connection to Source. And so they're doing this, two different connections are strengthening. And the thing that surprised me was that in these 2 sessions, they structured them the exact same way, but I wasn't aware of it until afterwards, that in both cases, they did something else first. They did a mini healing before they did the connection. So, for example, in one of them, they released our attachments to some expectation, releasing expectations around something. So I was aware that in releasing expectation, we free up energy. That if we have expectation about something coming in the future, it's like we take a piece of ourselves and we throw it in the future and we say, okay, I want that. And then a piece of ourself is out there. We have energy out there. And so what they did is they said, okay, release all those and claim that energy back to yourself right now. So we brought the energy back in, and then they used that energy to then make the connection. And so that was a big like eye opener for me to see that in both cases where they wanted to strengthen a connection, they had to bring us energy first, our own energy. We had to bring something back to ourselves first. And but that was the only 2 sessions they did that in. Every session they orchestrated differently, but it was amazing for me to see that there was this divine wisdom, this divine intelligence that was organizing the entire process, and to see it so visibly, it was a really neat awareness. And now I am always watching. Now I'm always looking at what they're doing, like understanding how healing works, learning about the process through what they do. But it's a beautiful, beautiful series. And they do go through, you can see through on my webpage where there's a description of what happens in every single session.
Mhm. Yeah, I think for me, only maybe the first 2 sessions, I can tell there's been more pause between some sentences, but for the rest, it just come very smoothly. And I
Yeah.
remember I did session number 9. It is about temporarily for the divinity to lift your karma so that you
Yeah.
can meet your higher self. And
Yes, I love that one.
yeah, I love that one too. That was the first one I did.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if I had a dream with my dad and my mom in it. The next time I saw my dad, he was looking at me as if he discovered something he didn't know about me. He was just looking at me, trying to figure out something about me. Because,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
because during the session, I did see both my mom and my dad's energy being lifted temporarily.
Wow, that is so amazing. Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And the next day, I felt so much energy within myself, like but almost like I have my own back, like
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah.
So that was really amazing. And the next program that I just finished now
Yeah.
is Soul Convergence program. This is so fascinating to me because I practice Qigong And we talk about balancing masculine and feminine energy, and then like Chinese symbol that's yin and yang. So we know that the importance of balancing both energies. And during my Qigong practice, I always wanted to balance my feminine and masculine energy. So this one came to me. I was so excited.
Yeah, how awesome. Oh my gosh. So you were totally prepped for it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And something like very fascinating that you told me about this program is that it not only balances your masculine feminine energies, it also help you achieve the level of healing that normally may require lifetimes.
Yeah.
And you talk about what is feminine energy and what is masculine energy, or what they do. Can you give some examples of wounded masculine energy versus healthy masculine energy? Because I think
Oh,
the people still don't understand that. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And it is, you're right. We talk a lot about these concepts without really having a good understanding of what they really come down to. And the I would say a lot of people think of divine feminine and divine masculine as being opposites. And as being, but what I see is you have the divine expression of masculine energy, and then you have the sort of disintegrated expression or the overexpression of masculine energy. So you have in its highest, and then you have it in its downfall. And same thing with feminine energy. You have it in its highest, and then you have it in its downfall. And so feminine energy is the energy that it's really the energy of intuitive connection. It's our energy of connection to source. It is about being in flow with the universe, right? It's that openness. If you think about the universe as this kind of like open, expansive, or open state, open set of receptivity, and it is the feminine is what discerns where we should go and what we should do. It's because of that intuitive connection. So the feminine is the one that feels through the heart space. Where is it that I'm guided? Where is it that I'm led? Where should we be headed? Right. And so it's all about that flow of the universe, being in the flow, being receptive to what we want to understand or what we want to go, being receptive to our guidance. But if we were only in our feminine, nothing would ever get done. Because it's all about being in that flow and being receptive and hearing the stuff and having the ideas and having the guidance. But you need the masculine to then step in and say, the masculine says, okay, feminine says, okay, here is where I feel we need to go. Then masculine has to say, great, I am going to now make that happen. So the masculine is that it's the head energy, right? Feminine is the heart energy, masculine is the head energy that comes forward and says, great, okay, if that's what we want to achieve, here is my 5-step plan of how we're going to do it. And here's the steps I'm going to take to get there. Right. And then the two then have to work together. They have to balance back and forth. So it has to be the masculine energy is putting things into action, taking steps of action. And the feminine is then going to be feeling and saying, is this getting me where I want to go? How do I feel about these actions? How do I feel about this state? And being in that flow of opportunity, saying, hey, you guys you're doing all this work, masculine, but I can feel our way to hear some beautiful guided opportunity that's just going to flow to us. So it's this process between the two of being divinely guided in our action. But then you have this beautiful, when you can get to this beautiful state where the two are working together, and the masculine comes first, supporting and lifting up, expressing the feminine, and you have this beautiful balance between the two. Or you can have a state where one or the other is wounded, or both. And what you end up with then is an overexpression or underexpression of a particular energy. So what can be a healthy sense of self-determination and individual action can become an overexpression of masculine energy, which becomes power hungry or controlling or domineering, right? It takes this lovely expression, which is like, hey, I'm going to make my way in the world. I'm going to create action in the world. And it turns it into something that then is about power over others. And that's just one example. On the feminine side, you can have that beautiful divine flow, which is when you're in your feminine and you're like, yeah, I'm riding the wave of the universe and it's moving through me and I'm creating from this beautiful space of awareness. But it's not a space of masculine action, it's feminine creation. that it would be the divine expression of the feminine. And you can have that being attuned and being receptive as being the positive expression. And then you can have the negative expression would be someone who's completely unable to make a decision, right? Who is so open and so receptive that they cannot find what they actually feel. It's almost like they're too wishy-washy, right? So you get the negative expression of the feminine. So you have, when you're in your divinity, you're bringing all that energy to the center and it's blended and unified. When we're out of balance, we're dipping into these over expressions or under expressions of these energies, and we end up with the world we have now, which is an over expression of divine masculine energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. As you were talking, I was just reflecting on myself, how I'm doing. Um, and I definitely before like had issues with not being able to accepting my feminine energy, always in the place of doing in
Yeah.
order to find value for myself. And that was the beginning point of my healing journey, because that really created a lot of emotional turmoil. And at that time, I really saw emotion as an obstacle for me to achieve my goals, because I was all in my head, all masculine energy. In my birth chart, a lot of masculine energy as well.
Yeah.
Like no water sign at all. So I had to learn how to embody emotions and feminine energy, and now realize there's so much depth to it. And to develop spiritually, like we need a lot of feminine energy, because
Yeah.
that's gonna help us to discern what energy is good for us. Um,
Yeah.
can you talk about like how this program can help us heal issues that it may take other healings like lifetimes to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that, I mean, as we're on our journey, the first challenge we have is waking up. And I see waking up, to me, the moment of waking up is the moment when we realize, where we really accept that our world is a reflection of us. It's that moment that rather than looking outside of ourselves and saying, who is to blame for how I feel, we instead look inward and say, what inside of me created this? And we start to move through our world and our life with that perspective, where we start to, everything becomes an experience of ourself, and we live from that place. And to me, that is awakening. That's the moment where we start to understand that we are the creators of our own reality. So from that point forward, if someone is able to get to that very important switch in our perspective of the world, then at that point, the challenge becomes seeing ourselves. The challenge becomes finding, where are our wounds? And the more healing we do, the harder it gets to find our wounds, to find the challenges that are inside of us, to find why is it that we do what we do? Why do these particular issues, why are they coming forward? And so, like, I'm sure most people can think in their life about a particular circumstance. Maybe they have, a really terrible romantic relationship, right? Maybe they have a dynamic with a parent that every time they see that parent, it brings a certain reaction in them, right? Or maybe they have a fear that they just can't figure out. Like, why is it that I'm afraid, or I feel anxiety for conflict? Like, why do I have anxiety whenever I feel like someone is angry at me? Or why do I feel like I have to walk on eggshells around this person, right? There are these things in us that we're like, what is creating that? But it's very, very hard to get to the root of it. And so for a lot of people, they will be stuck on square one. If you think of life as like a hopscotch path with the different jumps that you have to make, some people never get off square one. And I would say that is the majority of people who come to Earth never get off square one. That it is a miracle if they can get to the point of that awakening moment when they discover that they are creating their own reality. And then once they get past that, to the point of like, okay, great, now I see it's me. What do I need to change in me? Trying to find those wounds, to really understand themselves, to see themselves, is so much harder than we give it credit for. That it takes help. Like, trying to do it by ourselves is very, very challenging. And it's the realizations come few and far between. And so that's why I would say that for the typical person to make progress in a life, if you can heal 2 or 3 things in a lifetime, you are crushing it normally. You know what I mean? Like, that's great. That's amazing. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. And so what I see in soul convergence, and one of the reasons I'm so excited that the angels have brought this now, is that we have this unique time in our lives right now. This period that we are in is very unique, where all healing is available to us. The more healing we can do right now, the more this is like an opportunity to scrub our souls bright and shiny clean, to get as much healing as we possibly can, because we get to take it all with us. And then once we shift to this higher frequency, it will be much harder to heal, because it will be that much harder for us to find our wounds. But right now, we still live in this place where we are triggered, where we have to endure conflict, where we bump up against ourselves all the time. And so soul convergence helps you to move through life and to take all of the things that are happening and to integrate them as healing. So it guides you through a process where it speeds it up. It brings all of your stuff to the surface, and then it aligns all of it and brings it into your center. And so it's doing it wave after wave after wave. So it's literally, if you think of each one of those as a process of integration, it's bringing, and and they're going deep. They're healing ancient wounds. They're healing back through our past lives. They're just as much as they can get free in your system, as much as we are willing to release, they are healing. So it is definitely an accelerated process. Yeah, it amazes me how much people are accomplishing.
Yeah, I totally remember when I was doing some of the sessions, the recordings, like the angels first bring us to some of the wounded place, like feeling frustrated, feeling like there's no love, and then take us to an elevated place where you feel there's light, where you feel like you're permeated with divine energy. So
Yeah.
they did it very gently and very beautifully. And
Yeah.
you're talking about that um, we are at this time, like our lifetimes are available to us.
Yeah.
Is it just now or in the future too?
It's true right now. It's true in this lifetime. I imagine it will be true for us as throughout this incarnation. I'm not sure what will happen after the waves of light come. I don't know if that'll still be the case. I know it's true now because this is this idea that we have. This is like go for broke. This is like heal as much as you can. That's what we're in right now. This is like the healing derby where it's like, how much can we do? And so they kind of took off all the restrictions. And normally when we would incarnate in past lives, we would only have access to those lives that were relevant to that life. It would be like we would pick and choose and say, okay, I want to heal this wound, and I want these gifts. So I can see those in these past lives. So I'm going to connect to these 5 lives, and that's it. And that's how we would do it. And then in the past, we really didn't have access to the Akashic records. There was only certain people who had a very specific gift who could access the Akashic records. Well, now that's changed for this life only, is that we can all access it. We can all have, and our entire experience, we can bring in anything, we can heal anything. So yeah, so it's a wonderful time to be on earth. Like in terms of our ability to move forward as a soul, to become brighter as a soul, it's like no other.
Wow, it's a very pivotal time for humanity, right?
It really is. Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
amazing time. And an amazing time to being here right now is like winning the lottery, because your Earth always has been the best learning school
Oh
in
yeah.
the universe, but now you take the very best learning school and you open the Akashic records and you make it possible where you can heal anything. So this is literally the time to be here. Like this is an amazing time to be here.
Yeah, I think it depends on people's perspective. They can
Hmm.
see, they can either it is the best time or it is the worst time because
Right.
it requires you to not hold on to the past. The past construct doesn't work anymore, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And even after the lights come, there will still be people who are needing healing. Like there will still be people who are wanting to come into the light who are not yet there yet, but they said the opportunity is available to everyone. And so there may be people who are really looking for light workers. And the angels have said that your light will be viewable, that people will be able to see you, that you have embodied that light, and they will know you can help them. So the concept of like healers not being busy, that's going to change, I think. I think the healers are going to be very, very busy.
Correct. That's amazing. One thing I also would like to add regarding your soul convergence group is that every participant is also assigned to a dream analyst.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
something so fascinating.
Yeah.
My dream analyst, Janice, she's been on my channel. I interviewed her, and I not only used all 4 sessions, I booked her, extra sessions as well, because she is so spot on. And I think with dream interpretation, we really bring what's unconscious to the conscious, so
Yeah.
that that's another way to accelerate our progress on Earth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think.
and I love having that as part of the program because to me, you are able to track your dreams and see your own progress. And I find that to be so incredibly encouraging for you to be able to see, like, if you're dreaming and your dreams show you, okay, here's the wound, and then you work on it, you have a session, and then you come into the dreams, your next dream, and that issue is not there anymore, right? You've switched, you've moved on to some new issue, which says you have healed that, right? Like it's gone, it's cleared. So to me, it's the most exciting thing because you can track your progress. So I think there's a lot of times we go through healing and we think it's helping, but we don't really know if it's helping. And with the dreams, you're able to see what's going on because, and the way it'll show up, sometimes you have like a really obvious sign, like you'll dream that you're passing a test, or you'll dream that you're crossing a border or doing these things, or you'll see your house being worked on, being remodeled. Like these are signs that you're healing, that you're in the process of healing, or that you have shifted to a new state of awareness. But then you might also just see that you have all your dreams about a particular issue, and it's like you're dreaming about it, and then all of a sudden, boom, your dreams shift to the next issue. And when that happens, that means you have healed that issue. So it's very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. With the dream analysts, they are highly trained, and I find the way they interpret the dreams is very fascinating as well. They not only read into symbolism, but also they channel for you
Yeah.
as well, because dreams are so personal.
Very.
That's why a lot of dream dictionaries don't always work. Um, mhm.
Yeah, you're so right there. And I think it's given dream analysis a bad rap. Like I think that people will look up their dreams in dream dictionaries and it never makes any sense because those dictionaries are not accurate.
Mhm.
And it really takes like the specific method that the analysts are using is the Ashling School method. It's developed by Michael Sheridan, and it is the only method I have found that I think it's close to like Jungian philosophy, that to Carl Jung, to the it has there's some things in common with that, but it is the reason why I know it works is when I first found it and found Michael who created it. The reason why why I knew it worked is because when I had my dreams done, what I would see is that I would see the same exact like I would see multiple different symbols in the dream, but they would all be saying the exact same thing. So in other words, it would be the dream would reinforce the same message. And then I would have multiple dreams all saying the exact same thing, but in totally different ways. All the symbols, like it'd be like 5 symbols that all meant the same exact thing. So for me, like one of my first dreams that I had over and over and over and over again, but in 50 different ways, was telling me to stop eating dairy. Like apparently I had no idea it was toxic for me, like terrible for me. And I had no clue. And I love cheese, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah. And so, but anyways, I had dream after dream, and every single dream would mention, and it would show it to me in 15 different ways. And so I knew the dreams were accurate, that the symbols were accurate, because how could they all be saying the exact same thing? And so it was like the meanings reinforced themselves. And that was what really built my trust in the process. But yeah, but you're right. There is a certain amount that also just needs to be channeled on because the meanings can be very personal.
Mhm. Yeah, wow, this is truly like interesting. We have really progressed so much. Like we may think just little things we did, healing ourselves, small things, but actually it's very big things, because when we heal something, it actually leave a mark in the collective unconscious and help the people who come after us, their journey become a bit easier, right?
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. Is that, and that some of that is that we are raising our own frequency.
Mhm.
So if you think of each of us as like a light bulb on the planet, and that each of us are having, say we all start out as like 20-watt light bulbs, But as we clear our frequency, as we clear our and heal, our light bulb gets stronger. So maybe now you're 100-watt light bulb, and you're super bright. And so what is the total amount of light on the planet? Well, now it's a lot more because you are holding more light. And so that's what each of us is doing, is we're trying to increase our wattage. And that wattage then impacts the collective consciousness, is that as you shift your ideas about, like, think about how certain ideas will spread like wildfire in the collective. And I think this is going to increase dramatically in 2024. I think we're going to see a massive shift in that new ideas will just, like, it'll spread like overnight. It'll be like, it's almost like the collective consciousness is becoming more fluid, more open, like new ideas can travel faster. Like, even think about like when AI was released and how you turn around and pretty soon, like, everybody is using it. It just spread so fast. So I think new ideas are moving faster as we get to be, and as our consciousness is moving, is shifting to a higher rate or higher state. But yeah, I think as we are trying to open to concepts like that everything is energy, and to concepts of meditation, and concepts of that we create our reality, and all of these things that we take for granted, that those are spreading through the collective. And I'm so excited to see it.
Yeah, me too. This is exciting for me as well, contributing to humanity. As we healing ourselves, we are doing big service for humanity as well, right? So
Yeah.
as we take the initiation to heal ourselves, we actually prompt ourselves to become a better healer as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly true. And I can tell you that my own path as a healer has shifted constantly, that my own method and way of healing is constantly evolving and changing. And I welcome that. Like, I'm always growing myself and learning, and right now the angels do most of the heavy lifting, which is great. But I am allowing that energy to move through me. And so the more that I can grow and expand, the more energy I can hold, the better healer I can be. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Anne, for this amazing podcast. I just wonder, like, do you have any final messages for the viewers, or do you have new programs coming up that you want to share with the viewers?
Oh, thank you so much. I would say, as far as new messages, as far as just final words, I would say, I would just really urge people to embrace the concepts of releasing expectations about what the future will be, is opening ourselves, because it's like there will be things coming that are outside of our realm of experience. And if we're looking to experience a world that we already understand, we might not see it. So it's that idea of how open-minded can we be? How open-hearted can we be? How deeply can we be listening to what's happening around us and in front of us, and be present in the moment by living as much as possible in the moment and in a state of receptivity, and learning to navigate from that place through the heart space by feeling into our joy, feeling where our heart leads us. And that, I think, is going to help the most in terms of helping us to move into this new state of consciousness. And then I would just invite people, if they want to be part of Soul Convergence, the next program is starting February 10th. So coming very soon.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Anne, for this amazing podcast. I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you the next time.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Jane. It's been awesome talking with you.